Hey friends, what's up? Phillip here with Points of Phillip, and today we're breaking down the three biggest myths about Capital One credit cards. If you've ever heard that Capital One is only for people with poor credit, or that they never increase your limits, or that you'll never get a sign-up bonus, stick around. We're going to sort fact from fiction, and I think you'll be surprised by what we find. Before we do that, though, I want to ask you guys to like and subscribe. Doing that helps me and YouTube know that what I'm doing is helpful for, well, people like you. And doing that actually helps more people to view the content, something I really would appreciate. So thanks again so much for helping me out. Now, let's get into the first myth. So myth one, Capital One is only for people with poor credit. So this one comes up a lot. And yes, it's true that Capital One built a reputation on serving customers with fair or rebuilding credit. They also make a lot of money on interest, like every bank. But here's the thing. Capital One isn't just for subprime borrowers. They've got premium products like the Venture X, which competes directly with cards from American Express and Chase. And their no annual fee cards are some of the best starter cards out there. If you use your Capital One cards responsibly, they do reward you with higher credit limits and spending power over time. Now, it's important to remember, too, that American Express and Chase also make money on interest, just in different ways. For those of you who have American Express cards, I'm sure that you've seen, essentially ways that you can actually, they'll give you pay over time bonuses. They'll even send you 20,000 points sometimes to turn on this pay over time feature. And essentially what that does is it turns it from a charge card to a credit card. And when you do that, essentially it's allowing you to be able to, essentially once you have that on, you can actually roll over your balance from month to month. And of course, when you do that, you do pay interest. And it's definitely something that American Express appears to be more and more involved in and trying to actually get people to kind of be more familiar with actually charging interest or paying interest, right, on their balances. So every bank is making money somewhere. The key is how you use the card, right? And Chase too. My first Chase card was my Chase Amazon Prime Visa card. And so this card, first of all, it actually lets you pay kind of in segments through Amazon, right? So Amazon would say, because I have a history with them, they would actually allow me to say, if I bought a vacuum cleaner, I could pay it off in 5 payments, and I could still use my Amazon Prime card for those payments every month, but I was paying Amazon directly. However, recently, over the last couple of years, that's changed to where, that full balance immediately goes on my card, and then I just get essentially, they just tell me how much I have to pay of that each month. And so they can manage, right? They can manage exactly how much interest I'm paying, things like that. And so there's actually a way that I can actually pay interest, but also earn 5% cash back on that. But that math rarely works out. So here's the thing. Capital One, yeah, they like to make money based off of interest, right? But my main point is that every bank does. But just because you are someone who has great credit doesn't mean that you're someone that Capital One doesn't like. They have more of a standard of actually requiring people to actually spend on their cards in order to be able to get some of these other cards. So while I'm not someone who has the Venture X because Capital One won't give it to me, I understand it. Right. So I am someone who hasn't put a lot of spin on their Capital One cards. Over the last couple months, I've been working to try and increase that because I want to increase my credit limits, and I also want a shot at the Venture X. And so I've been working towards that, and they're a lot friendlier towards me now, right? Because I've been spending thousands and thousands of dollars on my Venture card, on my Saver card. But you have to present as essentially a customer that is making money for them, right? So real quick, before I continue to dive into breaking down the 3 biggest myths about credit cards with Capital One, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, Aura. So as a dad-to-be, I've been thinking a lot more about keeping my family safe. And honestly, the last thing I want is for identity theft to derail my plans. And that's where Aura comes in. Aura is an all-in-one identity theft protection and digital security platform. They cover all the essentials, so credit monitoring, data breach alerts, and up to $5 million in identity theft insurance. Aura scans the dark web for your financial and personal information, sends you alerts if your social security number or your accounts are being used, and includes extras like a US-based VPN, safe browsing, a password manager, and even an Experian credit lock. For me, having that kind of protection just feels like one more way I can safeguard my family's future. Now, Aura's got flexible plans, individual, couple, and family options. And what's really unique is their family plan covers up to 5 adults, unlimited kids, and all of your devices. You can even add your child's social security number to monitor for identity theft, which gives me peace of mind knowing my kid won't run into problems with their credit when they're older. Most competitors don't even come close to that level of coverage. Plus, Aura often runs promotions, so you can get started with as low as $9.99 a month with a 60-day money-back guarantee on annual plans. The bottom line here is this. If you've ever worried about whether your data is floating around out there, Aura is an easy way to take back some control. Stop leaving yourself vulnerable to data breaches. Go to my sponsor, Aura.com, to get a 14-day free trial and see if any of your data has been exposed. The link's in the description below. Thanks again to Aura for sponsoring this video. Now, let's get back into busting those myths about credit cards with Capital One. So, myth number 2 with Capital One is Capital One buckets you and never gives credit limit increases ever again. Now, this one has a little truth behind it. Capital One has been known to start people off with smaller credit limits, especially if you've only got fair credit. And fair credit is essentially what Capital One calls you when you don't have good credit, right? And some folks do feel stuck, right? It's very frustrating to have a $500 credit limit on a card and not really be able to do anything with it. But here's the reality. People do grow their limits with Capital One if they show consistent, responsible use. Pay your bill on time, use your card regularly, and they'll consider increasing your line. In fact, Capital One will straight up tell you if you're not using the card enough when you request an increase. So while bucketing has happened, it's not the whole story, right? My experience with bucketing is, so I first got the Platinum card with Capital One, then I got the Quicksilver card. So the Platinum card had essentially a credit limit of $700, and I used it, and in fact, actually I did, I maxed it out, and eventually, as I started to pay that back, that credit limit increased. Same thing with my Quicksilver card. That one started with a $500 credit limit, and it kept building, right? So I kept using it and reliably, and of course I was actually, paying interest on that balance, right? And so this allowed me to, essentially increase my credit limit kind of organically, right? As I used the card more and more and more, I got better results from Capital One over time. And then eventually, basically, I ended up getting the Saver card. And then I transitioned my Walmart card to my Venture card. And my Walmart card actually was my final card that I added. And that gave me I think it was like a $6,000 credit limit straight off the bat. Right. And so Capital One will let you grow with them. You just have to show them that you're a profitable customer. That seems to be very important to Capital One. Now, before I get into the final Capital One myth, though, I'm excited to announce that I am now sending out a weekly newsletter that comes out on Friday mornings. If you'd like to sign up, click on the link below to be taken to my website, where you can sign up for the newsletter. There, I'll give you the best, latest news of the week, along with the best credit card offers I've seen this week as well. And I'll also keep you updated with what's going on for the channel, like if I'm scheduling any lives or anything else that you want to join in on. Now, let's take a look at myth number 3. So Capital One won't give me a sign-up bonus. So this one's tricky. Capital One does have a pre-approval tool, which sounds great. But here's the catch. If you're approved for the fair credit version of a card, you probably won't see a sign-up bonus or an intro APR offer. Now, there is an exception if you actually specifically do the pre-approval tool for the Venture X, which is their flagship premium card, and that one does come with a solid welcome bonus. So they'll tell you if they're going to pre-approve you for that card, and if you do click through that link, then it comes through as a sign-up bonus. However, if you are, say, just applying for the Capital One Venture card or the Saver card, what it will do is it tells you that you're pre-approved for the Saver with fair credit, or Saver for fair credit. And what that does is it means that you don't get a sign-up bonus. But what it does mean, is that you also don't get like any introductory APRs or anything like that. they'll give you the card. You'll still, as basically essentially or earn the multiplier bonuses, right? So if you get the Saver card, you'll still get the 3% cash back on dining, groceries, and then on entertainment purchases and streaming, right? But essentially, they won't give you the sign up bonus. Now, that doesn't mean that you won't ever get a sign up bonus either. What this means is you actually have to go through and directly apply specifically for the version of the card that has a sign up bonus. Now, there's no guarantees, right? Because the approval criteria for the Saver with fair credit is different from the regular Saver that has a sign up bonus. And so you could be approved or pre-approved for the Saver for fair credit, but if you try to go for the one that's not guaranteed, you could get the sign up bonus or you could be denied. And so that is kind of a give and take with Capital One that you need to be aware of, right? And I know that some people like to say, well, I don't like Capital One because they give you 3 hard pulls. So here's the fact, right? They pull Experian, they pull Equifax, and they pull TransUnion. That is 1 pull for each of those 3. Now, most people don't care, right? Most people aren't going to care if they've gotten a pull on TransUnion, 1 pull on Experian, and 1 pull on Equifax, right? Because you're not cycling through bonuses. When it comes time to finessing those things, it kind of does matter, because if, say, Equifax is only showing that you've had 2 approvals or 2 hard pulls, then that can make you look better to a bank than if your TransUnion has 15. Right. And so that's where that comes in. But when people say that they don't like Capital One because they give you 3 hard pulls, they give you 1 hard pull, like the one that you deserve for applying for the card. And so for most people, 90% of people, that won't matter. Right. And so I wouldn't be too scared about that because, well, I have significant amounts of pulls. I probably have about 25 hard pulls so far this year. And, I definitely Credit Karma hates me right now because they always send me alert. Oh no, the world is falling, right? But the reality here is that once you get below, above 5 or 6 hard pulls on a specific thing, then it looks bad, right? But you can't get worse than that, and so it's not going to affect your credit in a negative way past that, realistically. So anyway, just make sure that about the welcome bonus thing, they will tell you that they only approve you for the sign up bonus or the card that doesn't have the sign up bonus. But essentially, that's not true, right? It's possible they will approve you. You just got to kind of take the risk a little bit. You got to roll the dice. If you're someone who doesn't think you would apply or would be accepted for the regular one, then maybe go with your gut on that one and take the card that you want. Because sometimes those cards can be worth getting without the sign-up bonus, although those sign-up bonuses are really, really sweet. All right, so let's wrap this up. So are all these myths totally busted? Not exactly. Like most things in the credit card world, the truth is somewhere in the middle. Capital One has its quirks, but also has some really competitive products, especially if you're looking for no annual fee cards, solid cashback, or even premium travel perks. So here's the thing. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to Points of Phillip, and drop a comment below if you've ever run into one of these myths yourself. Did Capital One surprise you? I'd love to hear your personal experience. Until next time, though, this is Phillip helping you make sense of points, miles, and credit cards. Have a great day.